Good morning, everyone. Or it's morning here, but evening there. So it's really special to see you. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce two very special people that have been with me when I've traveled in India. We've traveled all over India, it seems. And so I'd like to, first of all, introduce my associate, Pastor Jeff Jordan. Jeff, wave your hand. Wave your hand, Jeff. There we go. There we go. Pastor Jeff is my associate. He is deaf. So he brings a very special ability into our ministry as he works with the deaf, but he helps me in other areas as well. And then a very special friend that Jeff and I both have is Pastor Ambrose. Pastor Ambrose, wave your hand. There we go. Good. Pastor Ambrose is my associate there in India. And we have traveled so many places together. He's taken me to several universities and other places. We've ridden the trains and we've had a wonderful time. So Pastor Ambrose, it's very, very special to be with you and Jeff. In India, it's safer this way right now, but someday I hope to get back and be with everyone in India. So I'm going to share with you a short message today, and just kind of an introduction. I think it would be helpful if you knew a little bit more about what Possibility Ministries or Adventist Possibility Ministry. This is spreading so fast in the world today, and we want you to know a little bit more about it. But more than that, we want you to be part of this ministry. So we're looking for associates in India. We don't pay, but we need you. And so let me share with you. I'm going to share with you my screen. I'm going to share my screen with you. Can you see it okay, Ruth?
And, yes.
Okay. So I want to share with you a little bit today about the almost forgotten gift from God. You know, in many parts of the world today, people don't even accept this gift. God has given a gift, and some people say, nope, I don't want it. I don't believe in it. And when we do that, we have a problem, because what happens is we then begin to develop some broken relationships. You see, when we come to the world is really breaking apart in so many ways. And when we don't have God at the center, our values begin to change and our relationships begin to break up with one another. So when that happens, we have wars, we have family breakups, we have abuse in the homes. I hear of stories around the world where husbands are beating up their wives and wives beating up their husbands, and children are being abused, and all of these kinds of things. And that happens when we forget the special gift that God has given to us. And so we want to talk about what that special gift is. In the Bible, we find in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, then God said, let us make mankind, how? In our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish, the sea, the birds in the sky, and over all the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move on the ground. God says, you know, we created the world, but we're going to ask man to help us take care of the world. So God gave to us his image, his likeness, and with that came the responsibility for taking care of the world as he would take care of it. Well, that's really pretty special, but we don't really know what that means until we think about it a little bit more. So I'd like to suggest that when we are created in God's image, there are certain things that we need to know. It's like a starting point, because once we understand these points, then we can act as God would like us to. So when we realize that we are created in the image of God, that means we begin with special value. Doesn't matter what class you are in. You might be a Brahmin, you might not be. You may be a Dalit. It doesn't matter. Every person has a value in God's image. Number two, we are created with a purpose. I talk to a lot of people, and these people are saying, if I only knew that my life mattered. Well, this ministry is all about helping people matter because they have a purpose. When you have a purpose for living, life takes on a whole different kind of meaning. You may even have COVID. I had COVID. I had the terrible disease, and I picked that up when I was traveling. But I can tell you that even when you are sick, you have a purpose. Nothing can take a purpose away from you that God has given to you. Number three, we are created with possibilities. If you're created in the image of God, then you have all sorts of possibilities. You have abilities that God has given to you to be used. And we're going to be talking about that in a moment. But then there is also, you are created with a dignity or with an honor. You are created with this inside you. Now, let me tell you something you may not want to hear. Even your enemies are created with dignity. Why? Because they were originally created with the image of God. So we are all created with dignity, but we're not always aware of what that dignity means. And so some people abuse their relationship, their dignity. And we're going to talk about that. So God's gift to us was when he created us in his image. Now keep in mind, he's the king of the universe. And to be created in his image is awesome. It's amazing. That means every person is part of a royal line. We each have royal blood in us. We are each directly related to God. And that's amazing. So that means that the way I relate to you will be different. Because if I believe you are part of the king, I'm going to treat all the children of the king with great respect. We have a special value before we ever do anything. Sometimes we think, well, if we go to school and get a degree, then we're worth more. Then we have greater value. Not true. Our value comes from outside of us. It comes from God. Our value is not built about what we can do, what we look like, how fast we can run, no matter what we say, or it doesn't matter how much money we earn. When we are God's child, our value comes because of God and who He is. It sounds so simple, but it's much deeper than that. If this is not valued, then we will have strained relationships and dangerous conclusions can be drawn. If we don't believe that we are created in the image of God, many people believe we came from monkeys or we were created by evolution. If we believe that, then we can have some dangerous conclusions. We will say, hey, the value of a person is based on what they can do. So a person who is the president of a country is of more value than a person who might be a zealot or who might be a servant. Not so. Not in God's universe. We all become valuable because we are God's son or daughter. So we'll think that some people are more valuable than others. No. We are all of the same value. We may do different things. I may be a minister, and someone else may be a dentist. We are all of the same value because God is the creator. Now, you see, if you don't believe everyone is valuable, then you can eliminate some. Now, I remember when I was in India, I heard stories about how some children who were born with a disability, like if they were deaf, or if they couldn't walk, or if they couldn't see, they were discarded. But it's not only in India, it's also in Africa. But it's not just there. It's even here in the United States. We call it abortion. If someone gets pregnant and they say, well, we can't afford another child, we will just destroy this baby. Not so. We can't do that. We can't do that if we believe in the value of every person. If we believe that God is the creator, that God put something of himself in every child. If you can't walk, if you can't see, if you can't talk, you are still of value. And that's the Christian message that is so important today. See, if you don't believe that, then you can believe what Hitler did. Hitler destroyed 270,000 people because they had a disability. See, if you don't believe that God is the creator, if you don't believe that in every person is something valuable, then if there's somebody that you don't like, if they're not the right color, if they can't walk, if they can't talk, if they can't hear, you can just destroy them. And Hitler decided that he was going to make a super race. And he said, these people can be destroyed because they are not of good form. They don't have a good spirit within them. And that caused destruction of life. I'm very concerned about that. And someone has to speak up about it. And that's what Adventist Possibility Ministry is about. So let me talk a little bit about dignity. Dignity is the value that God implants in every human being. Everyone is born with dignity. They are created in the image of God. All have a deep desire to be honored by the value. See, every person that I ever talk to, every person says, I want to be special. I want to have a purpose in life. And I'm here to tell you, every person does. Every person has a special value. It doesn't matter what they can do. It doesn't matter what they cannot do. Now, obviously, we want to learn and we want to grow. We want to develop abilities, certainly. But our value is based on God, not on what we do. Human beings may value more what we can do. But let's remember where the real value comes. The value comes from God who created us. So respect and dignity, though, are not the same thing. Respect is earned by someone's behavior or the actions, but the same happens with disrespect. So a person may have dignity, but they may earn your disrespect because of things that they do or the way they say. But I have a question for you. If you disrespect someone, does that mean you can treat them poorly? Does that mean you can destroy them or kill them? Does that mean you can ruin their reputation? Does that mean you can speak badly about the person? No, because you know that behind those actions is dignity. So I want to treat even my enemies with a sense of dignity. I may not respect them, but I will treat them with dignity because of who God is. I treat them as God's creation. And that becomes very important point. Our value or our dignity is greater than the abilities that we have. I don't know about you. Many, many times in my life, I've said, I don't have any abilities. I can't play the piano. I can't sing well. I can't do all those kinds of things. But I forgot one important thing. I was created in God's image. So God reminds us that while all people have great worth, our individual worth does not come from within us. It comes from God. And that is the beginning point of seeing a life with possibilities. See, this is important because if you know you are created in the image of God, then your life is about exploring your possibilities. It's about helping other people explore their possibilities because they have possibilities. When you have children and you're helping those children learn and grow in your mind, you're helping them develop possibilities. When we come to Jesus, when we come to know him better, he is helping us realize the possibilities that we never even knew we had. I know that happened in my conversion. I developed abilities, even more abilities, because I was connected more directly with my Creator God. It is given to us in our weakness, not because we're strong. You see, evolution teaches that the strong are the ones who survive, and therefore the weak will die away. In God's kingdom, the weak come to God, their creator, and say, God, I am weak. I'm making mistakes. And God says, I have forgiven you, and I will build you back into my image in a more complete way. You see, the Christian life is about being recreated. If you believe in excuse me, if you believe in evolution, You just get stronger by your own might. And if you don't, you could easily be eliminated because you're weak. But the Christian message says everyone is weak. In fact, the Bible says that everyone has sinned. Everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. We have fallen short of the possibilities that God has given to us. So if I meet with a Muslim, if I meet with a Hindu, I believe that they are still created in the image of God, even if they don't agree with me or I agree with them. I begin to see possibilities even in those who believe differently than I do. And that becomes the gospel message, because the gospel changes lives. The gospel transforms our lives. At the heart of the new beginning is the blessing that we shall be to other people. See, when you begin to see people differently, you begin to see their possibilities, and they become more accepting of you and of your message. God's blessing is not to be confined to ourselves. We must share God's blessing with others. We offer dignity and care to all people, Muslims or Hindus or atheists. We offer dignity to them because of who made them, not because of what they have done. We are to affirm the worth of every person. Each person bears the image of God. Now, sometimes it's hard to see, all right? I understand that. But God says, I can change. I can bring life again. So, as we work with people, there is a glue. It's like a glue that holds relationships together. So if I'm speaking to husbands and wives, there's a glue that holds the marriage together. If I'm speaking to parents and children, there is a glue that holds the family together. The adults and the children, the parents and the children. And there are 4 points that I really want to make here. That when we do it from the perspective of creating dignity in each other, a husband who beats his wife, who talks angrily, or if a mother speaks angrily to her children, we hurt the very people that we love, that we want to help. And so there are 4 points that's important. We learned when we were parents, we still are, but when our children were small, that we didn't just push our children off into another room. No, they like to play by themselves, and that's fine. But we didn't try to hide them, because every person has the desire to be seen and to be recognized. Every person has the desire to be listened to or heard. You see, it's very important for us to know that everyone has thoughts of their own, and they need some place that is safe where they can share those ideas. You may not like those ideas, but the person needs to be able to share those ideas without you interrupting, without you being sarcastic or being mean about their ideas. So when we're building the image of God in other people, that means we're willing to listen to them. After all, when God asks us to pray, isn't He asking us to share our thoughts, share our hurts, share our opinions? Yeah, we do that when we pray. But we need to treat others the same way. And then we need to also treat people fairly. Treat them with kindness and with fairness. So when our identity is accepted, we feel included. So one of the most important parts of a church is to help people feel like they are included. That means like they feel like they belong. So Adventist Possibility Ministries is all about doing that very thing, helping the person who can't walk, who can't see, who can't talk, who can't hear. We are all about helping people feel like they belong. That's who we are. And that's what we try to do. So the one central truth that I want to leave with you today, the one central truth is that we must never forget this one thing. All are gifted, needed, and treasured. That means you. That means I believe you are gifted, I believe you are needed, and I want you to know that you are treasured. And until we help people understand that, they will never feel like they belong. So being accepted means feeling like you belong. And that's what we need to do. So let me just pause at this point. Do you have any questions for me before I explain about Possibility Ministries? Did what I say make sense?
The chat box is now open. If you have any questions, you could type in or wait for the end also. If you have any questions, type in later.
Okay, and if they wanted to unmute, I'm open to that. They could ask them any thoughts. Okay, so what we have just shared is the Bible base for the ministry that we represent. It is so critical that you understand this Bible teaching, that we are all created in the image of God, that our value comes not from what we do, but what God did when he created us in his image. So we talked about all of those important points, and we concluded with the point that all are gifted, needed, and treasured. Those are the three characteristics that represent this ministry. So let me explain to you about Adventist Possibility Ministries. Number one, we strongly believe that the gospel transforms the way we see ourselves. Let's start right there. This is an important point. We believe that the gospel, the good news, that Jesus, who came and died for us and has risen again, who has sent the Holy Spirit to be with us today, that gospel transforms the way we see ourselves. There are far too many suicides in India. I remember reading the newspapers about people who, when there was a destruction or when they lost their dignity, if they lost their finances, that some of them were committing suicide. That can't happen. That should not happen. The way we see ourselves is important. Every person that I'm talking to is valuable. You do make a difference to someone, and that someone is the one who created you. Others may see value in you, or they may not see value in you, but the one who created you sees you as very valuable, so much so that he gave his life for you. So we are learning to think differently about ourselves, about God, even about other people. Possibility ministry is teaching people to think differently about themselves, about others, and about God. That becomes very important. We do not ignore disabilities, but we do not stop there either. So we believe that there are disabilities. Yeah, there are people who can't see, people who can't hear, people who can't walk. Yes, there are people like that. But don't stop there, because we see the person through the lens or through the glasses of God. And what we begin to see what that person can do. My associate, Pastor Jeff Jordan, is deaf. He doesn't hear my words, but he is being talked to now through an interpreter. But I believe in Pastor Jeff because Pastor Jeff has special abilities, special gifts that God has given to him. I don't speak all the languages that Pastor Ambrose, my associate in India, I can't speak the languages, but he speaks. I am not complete when I go to India without Pastor Ambrose. Okay? When I'm with the deaf people, I am not complete without Jeff, because Jeff understands the deaf and works with them. Now, I'd like to think that they feel the same about me, that I can help them like they help me. And that means we need each other. I do not ignore people because they can't do some things. Pastor Jeff, does not ignore me because I can't speak sign language. He's still trying to teach me. And he has the gift of patience. But we have to work together. Number 3, we encourage everyone to recognize in every person their God-given dignity. Stigmas are out there. I know you have stigmas in India. One of the stigmas you have are all the different classes. You have the Dalits and you have the Brahmins. I don't believe that is God's plan. I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you. But I believe that we need to understand that every person has a dignity because they are created in the image of God. So don't let someone who cannot walk, who can't control their body. No. Don't think less of them, because we must remember God has created them. Why? I think one of the purposes that people who are deaf or blind is to help the rest of us. Because when I work with Pastor Jeff, I always learn. I learn from him. I learn more about myself because I'm having to think more clearly about the gift of hearing. And hearing isn't only sound, it is also understanding. I learn that it's not the sound that is always the most important. It's being able to listen to the heart and the soul of the person. So if I think my eyesight is the only way I can see, then I'm wrong. Because the blind teach me some very important things. They see past the blindness and they can see who I am without even seeing my image. You see, we can learn from each other. Number 4, we are a ministry of personal affirmation. In other words, I want to know, Adventist Possibility Ministries is about affirming people, encouraging people. All are gifted, needed, and treasured. That's an affirmation. I'm affirming people. Every person has an inherent value that is not dependent on what they can do or cannot do. In other words, even if they can't do certain things, they are still valuable. I am affirming a person that they are valuable. Number C, people are welcome. I'm sorry, a typo there, but the people of God welcome people. You know that you belong. I'm sorry, let me go back again. People know that they are welcomed. They will go where they are welcome, but they stay where they are valued. People will go where they are welcome, but they will stay where they know they belong. We need to help people feel like they belong. Number D, each person is unique and has a God-given purpose. You know, I'm not the same as my wife. I'm not the same as Pastor Ambrose. We are each unique, and each person has a special contribution to make. So we can be confident that God has a purpose for us in our life. Each person is called to minister to other people. You are not just for yourself. God did not give you these valuable gifts of talent just for yourself. God has created you to be a blessing to other people. APM, or Adventist Possibility Ministries, is a movement. It's not a program. It's a movement that the Holy Spirit comes upon us to see the strengths and possibilities in 7 different areas. Possibility Ministries has 7 different areas of ministry. There's the deaf and the hard of hearing. There's the blind and low vision. There are those who are challenged with mental health. There are those who have physical mobility challenges. There are the orphans and the vulnerable children. You know, you can be a vulnerable child even if you have both parents. Living in some homes makes you vulnerable to abuse, and we have to address that too. Those who mourn the loss of a spouse. We have a whole ministry built on just the bereavement or the mourning for the loss of a spouse. And then we have a ministry called caregiver ministry. People who take care of people who have disabilities also need support and care. So you begin to look at all of this with Adventist Possibility Ministry. What a huge job. Now, there are 4 basic biblical principles that I want to make sure you remember. We've mentioned some of them already, but I want to emphasize it again. Every person is a human created by God. We understand that humans make mistakes, but we are still created in the image of God. Number 2, God is bigger than our circumstances. You know what that means? You face the trouble, you face problems. Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 says that God is bigger than any problem that we may have. Number C, we are a human race. Discrimination and stigmas minimize God's dignity. We must not do that to each other. In my country right now, there's all sorts of problems because of race. But it's not only in my country. We think that the human race is one color. No. We are one human race with multiple colors and multiple languages and multiple abilities. We are one human race. That's the message of the Christian church. Therefore, we do not hold race against anyone. And finally, injustice flourishes when the church is silent about evil. Proverbs 28 reminds us that we have a responsibility for speaking up when we see dishonesty, when we see disrespect, when we see immorality. We must speak up. But the kind of speaking up I'm especially concerned about today is when people who have a disability are treated poorly. We must speak up. We must do what we can. So let me just share with you quickly. We'll have some questions in a moment. Our time is almost up. But let me share with you how our ministry works in action. I was on an island and we began marching in streets. I did a march in Africa too. But here we held up these signs that said, disability is the inability to see ability, or see the person, not the disability. We had a police car that took us through the streets sharing that message. Then I was in Africa, and I was so amazed at people who could not walk. They were being carried into the lake to be baptized. Look at this. This man could not walk. And because of this ministry, we began finding people all around the world who wanted to follow Jesus, but they were being ignored because they had a disability. We cannot let that happen. And here we have in Kenya, we had a very large baptism. We've had large baptisms in India too. We're very excited about that. But people come because we're excited about what God can do. In Romania, we have people who have all sorts of disabilities. And one day we took the people in wheelchairs. I'll show you some pictures in a moment. They took these balloons, and the balloon said, "Thank you for existing." These people who were being aborted and discarded, these people who survived, they were giving balloons to other people, telling them, "Thank you for living. Thank you for existing." And they were the ones who were saying this. The people who would have been aborted or discarded, they were the ones now telling other people. They were the ones giving hope and encouragement to other people. These are the people who gave out the balloons. Costin there in the wheelchair. He doesn't look very intelligent, does he? He's all crippled up. Did you know that he is a chess champion? Did you know that that Costin there in that chair is very smart, very brilliant? He can play 7 chess games at the same time. And he can't even see the board. You just tell him and he can remember where they are. And then our Down syndrome boy here. I remember him very, very well when we would sing songs. And every time we would sing a song about Jesus, he would cry. Why? Because he was thinking about Jesus loving even a Down syndrome boy. And so I share these things with you. Why? Because they challenge me and because they have a message for our world too. I remember when I was in Romania, a blind lady came to me and said, Pastor Larry, I'm blind, but I want to be part of this ministry. What can I do? And those questions are being asked over and over again by the deaf and the blind and the lame, the poor, those people who have been pushed aside. They are also wanting to be involved. And so I challenge you. I challenge you to make room for them. Make room for them by showing them that you love them and that you care for them. Yes, that they even have a place in the church where they can be involved in action and planning for the church, because they have ideas too that need to be included.